Game over, man. Game over.
Johnny.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
Why so serious?
Roll out.
I am Iron Man.
This is a tasty burger.
Welcome to the In Session Film Podcast.
Hello, and welcome back to Chasing the Gold podcast. I'm Erica Richards. I know it's been a while, but I'm back, and I'm here with my lovely co-host and friend.
Yes, I'm Shadan Larkey. My beloved prodigal podcast co-host has returned. I'm so excited.
I'm so excited to be back. We were literally talking before this, and I was like, okay, Shadan, stop. We need to start recording because, like, we need to save this for the pod. So, yeah,
Can I just say that happens a lot? Because I'll watch, like, a movie or something, and I'll be like, I want to, like, text Erica about this, but then I'm like, I'll save it for the pod. So I feel like there's, like, a lot of things that I always want to tell you that I'm like, no, wait, I have to save them for the show.
We should just create a note on, like, the notes app and just, like, make notes. We should do that.
Yeah, we should do like random things that we want to geek out about in full, like greater detail at a later date. Yes.
100%. Yes. So yeah, I have been gone for a while. I was traveling. I was out of the country for like almost 2 weeks, which is like super fun and exciting. But I'm glad to be back and recovered from that trip. And like settled back into real life. But summer's also crazy and busy, and so I finally am hopefully back now into a routine of being able to podcast. So I appreciate your flexibility and taking the reins and filling in and doing all the things while I was gone. So I appreciate you.
Yes, we had a lot of fun guests come on in your absence, which was really fun to get to geek out with other people too and talk about random things and dig into like what other people are passionate about and nerd out about. I will say though, in regards to your trip, which first of all, like I think half of your notifications on Instagram were probably for me because I was like, oh, Erica posted like, but I was very impressed with the amount of stuff that you were able to cram into this trip. Like I was like, wow. Like,
it's so funny because, okay, like I always say there's a difference between a trip and a vacation. This was definitely a trip. Vacations, like you're like on the beach relaxing, you're drinking margaritas and reading a book and you know, you're resetting. This was like and this, I'm this kind of person when I'm on a trip, right? Wherever I am, how can I maximize my amount of time and see the most things and do the most things for how long I'm here? And we definitely, I mean, we ran our asses to the ground. Like we were walking like on the day. So let me just preface this for the people. This was a work trip, but also like tagged on like some vacation time and like took some time to explore trip. I'm very lucky my boyfriend got to come with me. It was awesome. But so the days I wasn't working and even the days I was working, you know, it was like a normal work day. So I'd get off in the evenings and we'd either be able to do dinner together or do like, you know, if again, on Instagram, like we went to a cricket match, we went to a soccer game, which I know I'm not supposed to call it a soccer game in England. We were going to Wembley and Tyler was like, okay, but like seriously, you can't call it a soccer game here. Like, they're going to be offended. I have a really fun, I should tell you this story. I have a really fun story. So we're at Wembley. This is like the friendly match that they were playing. It was England and Iceland. And so we got there early. We're like at, you know, Wembley and we're having dinner and we're at this like little Italian restaurant right outside the stadium. And there's like another couple next to us. And Tyler's just like geeking out, right? Like he's a big soccer guy. I'm not a soccer girly. Like I'm just not like any other sport I'm pretty much all in on. I don't really enjoy watching soccer. Sorry, people, don't hang me from the rooftops. And we're sitting there and, you know, like I said, we've been sitting next to this couple the whole time, whatever. And Tyler's like, I'm so excited. Like, this is so cool. Cause like, you're just watching all the people like walk into Wembley. Right. And he's like, oh, I'm so excited. This is so awesome. And I said, I wish I was here for Taylor Swift. And the woman next to us, she's like, me too. Like she heard me and she like leaned over and she was like, me too. We ended up talking to this couple for like 45 minutes. They were lovely. And she had told me, like, then she says, because when we were there, it was the time when Taylor was in Scotland, and this woman was from Scotland. She literally told me that day that she gotten taken off the wait list and got a code to get tickets for like that night or for like the next night. Sorry, this was Friday, so she got like code for tickets on Saturday, and she's like, yeah, I just got, and I was like, what are you going? Like, what's going on? You know, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, I have to fly to Boston on Sunday. And I was like, girl, that is Sunday's problem. You can go on Saturday. Like, I was like trying to convince her. She's like, I already like gave up my, like, I didn't get the tickets. And I'm like lecturing this woman. I'm like, what are you thinking? Like, you should have, I'm like, oh my God. And then her boyfriend's like, I'm trying to buy us tickets for somewhere else to make up for it, blah, blah, blah. And I was just like, girl, you can go to that concert on Saturday night and still get to Boston on Sunday. Like, so funny story. But anyways, so yeah, so we, back to like the whole trip, like we did so much stuff. We were walking like 17 to 20,000 steps a day. You know what, it's so funny because you're not the first one to say that. Everyone has been like, Erica, you did so much on that trip. And I'm like, it makes me happy because it's like I wanted to feel like I did all the things, like did all the Londony touristy things, and I feel like we really did, and it showed, you know what I mean? Like, it was just the funnest trip, like my favorite trip we've ever done. And like, I can't wait to plan another big overseas trip. Like, it was just a blast. And I love seeing things and learning things and doing history things. And it was just awesome.
What shows or show did
Oh
you
my
get to go see?
So we ended up seeing 3. We were there for 12 days. We saw 3 shows. So I had I don't know if have you ever seen the film Witness for the Prosecution?
No.
So it's an old Billy Wilder film, 1957. When I was getting my master's, I took a class all on Billy Wilder, and like I fell in love with his stuff. And that was like one of my favorites. It's actually an Agatha Christie story. If you're into Agatha Christie, and it's like a courtroom drama, right? Like a courtroom thriller drama. And I always loved the film, and it's one of the films that like I want Tyler to see. Like, we have like a ongoing list for each other of like stuff that I've seen that he hasn't. It's like, I want you to watch this, right? And when I was looking at shows that were in London, I saw that, because like I love musicals, don't get me wrong, I love a musical, but I was like, oh, this would be fun to just like see a play, right? So I had bought tickets for Witness for the Prosecution like a while before we went. And then I had been talking to some friends from work actually that had actually just gone to London for a different trip, for like a vacation trip. And they were coming on the trip with me too. And they were like, oh, we saw Phantom of the Opera while we were there. Like, you should definitely go see it. Like, it was incredible. Like, and I have never seen Phantom of the Opera, like the movie, the play, the musical, nothing. So, and they were like, we did it on the night that the day that we flew in, to try to like stay awake and get like acclimated to the time, right? And so I was like, okay, so like kind of on a whim, like literally, I think it was less than 48 hours before we left, I like on a whim bought tickets to Phantom of the Opera. So we saw Phantom the first day we got there. So we left here Friday night, got in Saturday morning, Saturday 11 a.m., whatever. We saw Phantom that night. And it was incredible. As tired as I was, it was incredible. And then the next week we saw Witness for the Prosecution, which was awesome. It was like they do it in the old London County Hall. So you're sitting in a
cool.
It was so cool. It was incredible. You're sitting in like a courtroom, like like courtroom style, and it was so cool, so cool. Highly recommend if you can see it. It's so worth it. It was incredible. Like, and you kind of feel, because you're like, the stage is like they're using everything around you, so you kind of feel really immersed in it. And then it was funny, like the hotel we were staying at, like most of the time, was right near Wicked. And obviously that's not, if you know me, I'm obsessed. And Tyler had said to me, like, why didn't you get us tickets for Wicked? And he's already seen it. We saw it at the Kennedy Center. But I've seen it multiple times. And I said to him, I was like, well, I didn't think, like, I've seen it 5 times, and I was like, and you've already seen it. Like, I just didn't think like you'd want to see it again. And then on like the last night, he like kind of, so I won't say like surprise me, but like he was like, I'm gonna get us tickets. So we like went and saw Wicked for my 6th time the last night. So we saw, like I said, 3 shows. It was awesome. It was so fun. I would have seen more if I could. The one there that like I've never really heard of playing here is called Mousetrap, and apparently that's like the longest running show on the West End there.
Is it like based on the movie?
I guess it's like I've never seen the movie. Is it like a whodunit, like mystery type of thing?
Yeah, with like it's like Nathan Lane and somebody else. That's a big movie like that I grew up on.
Okay.
No, so a big part of my London trip budget was like tickets to shows. And if I ever live anywhere near New York City, like all of my money is just gonna go to seeing shows. But what I was gonna ask you is, how was like the West End production of Wicked in comparison to like the others that you saw?
So I hate to sound like a bragger, but I always tell people like I saw Wicked in New York City on Broadway at the Gershwin with the original cast. So like nothing will ever top that.
Oh, well.
Yeah, changed my life. I was like 15 years old.
Oh my God.
Changed my life. This is why I'm so obsessed. I was like, oh, like I went into it like not really knowing what I was like going into. I've always been like a witchy girl, right? And loved those type of things. And of course, like, seeing the Wizard of Oz and all that good stuff. But it just like truly like moved me in a way that like I was not expecting, and I was obsessed. I still am. Like look out for the person I'm going to become when it comes out on film, and I can like watch it all the time. But yeah, like I said, I've seen, nothing will ever compare to seeing it with the original cast, right, on Broadway in New York. It was good. It was funny because like, how like sometimes when people have accents but they're singing, you're like, oh, I can't even really tell they have an accent. But it was different because like their accents, or I won't say they're like super thick, but thick enough where I was like, oh, like I'm in London watching Wicked. You know what I mean? It was fantastic, right? Like they were wonderful. But like I said, nothing will really ever compare to the first time I saw Wicked. So I think I'm always chasing that high.
Yeah.
That will never happen, but it's still, Wicked isn't like my favorite thing ever, so I'm obsessed.
Have you read the book?
I did. So
Okay.
like I said, after I saw it for the first time, like I said, 15 years old, whatever, I like went out and bought the paperback with the green edges, and honestly, like I wish I could tell you I remember reading it, because I don't really, like I said, I was like 15, 16 years old. So like I should reread it. It's still on my bookshelf. It's just like, it was one of those things, like I know that I read it, but
yeah, I asked because somebody gifted me that exact paperback that you're talking about like 10 years ago, and I haven't gotten to it, but I'm like, I'm gonna read it before I watch the movie. Like that's like one of my goals is like read the book.
From what I remember, it's different. It's different from what I remember. I also think I remember being 15, 16, whatever, and like picking it up to read it and like starting it and being like, this wasn't really what I thought it was going to be. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Which is also why I think like immature 15-year-old me like doesn't really remember it, because I think I kind of like blew through it, or maybe I read the first few chapters and like sat it down for a few months and then like finished it. I don't really remember. I should go back and reread it.
It's one of the things that's become so much bigger than what the original thing was. Almost kind of like Harry Potter. It's like taken on a world of its own beyond what was originally on the page. So
exactly. Yeah, exactly. I also, it's that thing where I seeing the trailer, like I was so excited because it feels like it stays really true to the musical. So I'm just hoping, like, this is one of those things that I think if they mess with it, I'll be really upset, just because I'm so in love and obsessed with the way the story is in the musical. I just like I'm like, I don't think they're gonna change it, but I'm not gonna lie, it does make me a little bit nervous.
I don't know. I would prepare yourself just because I feel like, I mean, it is kind of a long musical, but it's gonna be like, I don't even know what, 4 hours of movies when all is said and done, 5 hours. So like I'm
It's
assuming,
gonna be 2 films, right?
yeah, yeah. So I'm assuming
Okay.
they've added to it, and
I heard that it was gonna be 2, and somebody who I don't know who it was, they were like, "No way," and I was like, "I'm pretty sure it's gonna end, like, the first movie is gonna be, like, 2 intermission of the musical."
yeah,
You
yeah,
know what
yeah,
I
yeah.
mean?
Yeah, no, it's definitely two. I mean, it's definitely gonna be because part 2 is coming out next year.
Okay.
So
I
yeah,
thought so, I thought so. Ugh, I don't know, I just, like, I it's okay to add to it, I don't want it to change, if that makes sense.
mm,
You know what I
fair
mean?
enough, fair enough.
Like, give me more school scenes, give me more, like, scenes with, the love interest scenes, give me all that. Don't change the story, if that makes sense. But yeah, so all that to say, we saw 3 shows and it was incredible. All 3
That's
shows were
awesome.
great.
That's awesome. I mean, I'm glad you're back, but I'm glad you got to have your London adventures too.
It
And
was the best. It was the best, yeah. It was the best.
how
Have
much
you've been to
tea
London?
I have, which like I did do a lot, and I felt very proud of myself for all that I did. But then like I said, I saw everything you did, and I was like, damn, like I should have Erica plan my trips from now on.
It's not a
Yeah,
competition, not a competition, but yeah, it's all I mean, it's
but
really all it's all
yeah,
in what you want out of your trip, right? Like
yeah,
we ran and did so much every day because that was really what we wanted to do.
yeah.
But like what you were just about to ask me, you're gonna ask me about did I have tea? I did not have tea the whole time I
Mm,
was there because like I didn't really fit it in, and then it was like, how do we like, where do we go and how do we plan this? And it was it was like, oh, I would really like to do this while I'm there, but it was also like I'm not going to sacrifice this other thing that I plan to do it, if that
yeah.
makes sense. So I
I
think
think
that
with traveling too, it's like what I tell myself is like there's no way you can do everything, so you kind of just have to be okay
right.
with that and like make the most of the
Yep.
things you do get to do. So
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, we did get tea at the airport when we were like sitting down eating at the airport before we left. So I was like, okay, finally having tea. Like, also because like there was opportunities, but like not really, you know what I mean? And it was like one of those things where I was like, I don't what time of day do I do this? Like, is it afternoon tea? And like we were always like doing stuff, So it was like,
hmm
when do I do this? Like, I don't know. Um yeah, but it's one of those things that, like, not to say, like, it wouldn't have been, like, a fun thing to do because, like I said, I did wanna do it, but there's, like, little places here, and I'm not, like, comparing anything here that like that, but it's, like, the same kinda thing, right? Like, there's a little, like, tea shops here that, like, I've taken my niece to or, like, me and my girlfriends have done where it's, like, you go and you get tea and you get the little, like, scones and little sandwiches and all that stuff. So, like, I've done it here, and I just think in my head, I was kinda like, "How's it gonna be any different?" You know?
You wanted the yeah, I feel you.
You know?
Um, so let's talk movies because I know you've seen a lot of stuff that you wanted to talk about.
Yes. Okay, so did you see Hitman? I know this is,
I
like, taking it
Yes.
back, but
So I what a smooth transition. So yes. So I saw Hitman at TIFF last year.
Oh, that's right!
Yeah, really really loved it. I will say I wish so badly that it was playing at a theater anywhere near me because I probably would have gone to see it again in a theater. But yeah, I mean I love Richard Linklater. I've like waxed poetic about Richard Linklater before. Like he does not miss, in my opinion.
Yep,
I will watch
agreed,
anything that man wants to make. Like I'll
agreed,
be there,
agreed,
seated, as they say. So yeah, no, I
agreed.
really really loved Hitman
Yeah.
a lot.
I love Richard Linklater. Obviously fell in love with his work, with the Before, trilogy, like, that was one of the pivotal moments for me in my, like, discovering my love of film.
Same.
In college, like, it's one of those especially the first two films, like, I watch them and I'm just, it's like my heart stops and I'm like, oh god, I just love this. So yeah, I also agree he doesn't miss. I love everything I've ever seen of his. And I actually think probably the first film I saw of his was when I was in high school and I saw Dazed and Confused and I loved it. And I think then I like didn't really like know who he was as a director or anything. But yeah, so I've been looking forward to Hitman for a really long time. Again, Glenn Powell, right? The man of the year, I think. And we actually watched this when we were in London, when we got back to our hotel one night after exploring all day and we were exhausted. And we were very lucky our hotel had like the Netflix like hookup or whatever. So it was like, oh my God, Hitman came out today. Like, let's watch it. So I loved it. I thought it was really fun. I thought Glenn Powell, I thought it was like perfectly funny and suspenseful in all the right ways and all the right moments. I actually enjoyed the plot a lot. Like, I was wondering how they were going to pull it off or how it was going to be. Was
Sorry,
it what
I'm
you thought it was
laughing
going
at
to be?
the
Or did you...
I'm laughing at the element of surprise in your voice. You're like shocked. You're like, I enjoyed the plot, and you just have this like thing of.
I mean, I think I just didn't know what to expect. I was like, what is this gonna be? You know, like, because I liked that the, how do I say this? The previews were kind of, or like the trailer was kind of like, you didn't really know what angle it was gonna take, right? Like, was he actually a hitman? I think was like kind of what I was going into. I was like, is he actually a hitman or is this a joke? Like, what is this, right? Like, I didn't really know what the plot was going to be, I think. And that's why I say it like that, because sometimes these things, and again, not that I had always had faith in Richard Linklater, but I kind of was like, am I going to be disappointed by this? You know, like, it seemed like it could have been one of those where it was like not going to deliver in that way, if that makes sense.
I think I'm really lucky that I went into it not knowing anything at all.
Okay.
And so that, you know, made it easier to not have expectations.
Yeah. Yeah. Funny. I thought it was like suspenseful in all the right ways. It was that weird kind of like, which I love this because this is something that like I feel like is very Hitchcockian and that I love, where it's like you're kind of questioning your morals, right? And like who you're siding with. And like who you like is the bad guy, like the one that you want to succeed, and who is the bad guy, right? So I liked that like aspect of it.
Oh yeah, I was like unapologetically like rooting for them to get away with whatever they wanted. I was like, I don't care.
Exactly, but I kind of for a second was like, oh shit, like they actually did this, you know, one thing, and how are they going to get away with this? And yeah, I do want them to get away with this, but are they going to actually get away with this, you know? But no, I loved it. And like I said, Glenn Powell is just he's just dreamy and I love him and I think he's funny and charming. And
but you know what I really loved about him? I mean, I'm glad that Glenn Powell got like the sort of movie star vehicle, but I thought his co-star Adria Ajora,
yeah.
I'm butchering that, but like I was not familiar with her at all, and I love when I get to like meet somebody new, and then I was like looking up like, oh, what else has she been in, to try to find things to watch and stuff. That's always fun.
I agree. She was really good. And like plays this like innocent, like what's the word? Innocent, like but like mischievous kind of villain, kind of. Yeah, I thought she was great. And then of course, what's her name from Parks and Rec?
Retta.
Yes,
Retta,
thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could
Yeah.
not pull that name out. She's great. She's funny. I love
More
her.
more
It was good.
Retta in everything. In all things.
Yes, it was so good to I was gonna say it was so good to see her in something.
Mhm.
It was super
Which,
fun.
Erica,
So
I
yeah,
don't
no,
know
I
if we've talked about this before, but how do you feel about, like, in general, characters being likable? Because I hear that a lot. Like, friends will be like, "Oh, I didn't like Succession because they were so unlikable," or like just different. I'll hear like that has never been something that has kept me from watching or enjoying. So I don't know what that says about me. Maybe I need to examine, but I don't know. I've never
I
been bothered by that.
me either. I think it's also with what kind of lens you're watching it with, right? Like if you're watching it to like be friends with the characters, like you're not always watching the right things. Um I think I think this is something in books too, right? Like I think with books some people are like god, like that the main whoever the main character is like god, they're so annoying. Like I can't stand them or like they're not likable or whatever. And I think it's an interesting thing because at some point you have to have some type of you know thing with the protagonist, right? Like you need to be on their side or rooting for them or like relate to them in some way, right? But yeah, those people who are just like they weren't likable, I'm just like, you what were you watching this for? You know what I mean? Like what did you want out of this? Because that's not always like end game for me is to like
Yeah.
the characters,
I think for
right?
me, I
I mean,
actually look for characters that are different from me or like that would handle situations
sure,
differently from what I would. I don't know, I don't really feel
right,
I understand the like wanting to see yourself reflected. I think that there's a time and place as you said for that kind of thing. But like I think there is
sure,
something so fascinating about being thrown into a scenario and just like not or like having people do the exact opposite of what you would do because I do think that that does cause you to question your morality in a really interesting way. Um, sorry, your comment
right.
just
Or like watch
blew my brain. So now I'm trying to process. Yeah.
yeah, or like this thing where like a lot of times I'm watching characters and they're in situations that I would never be in, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like they're doing things that like I would never be doing that, right? Whether it's like I don't know, crime or drugs or something like that where it's like I would never find myself in this situation. It's actually really interesting that we're talking about this because we're like my boyfriend and I, it's like, we watch things together. So it was like the other day we're like, oh, well, we need to like find like a new series or like a new something to like start watching that we can watch together. And he actually brought it up and he goes, have you ever seen The Night Of? I never watched that. And I was like, oh my God, you never watched The Night Of? Did you watch this on HBO?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yeah.
same. And so so I'm rewatching it. He's watching it for the first time, right? We're like 4 episodes in, and obviously I'm not going to spoil anything or whatever, but I'm just sitting here saying like a lot of times I'm watching characters or I'm watching scenes that I know I would never find myself in. But then again, there's this guy who's got caught up in this thing that happened, right? And he's like innocent and he just got caught up in the moment in, being dumb and 22 years old or however old he is, and he's got himself in this whole situation where it's like, and I think that's why it's just so funny because we're like my boyfriend too is like so emotional when he's watching and he's like no like reacting at the decisions he's making and stuff because I think he can feel that connection, right, of like, oh my God, like this kid's such an idiot, like he's so and I even said to him, I was like, well, you were an idiot when you were 22 years old. Like he's like, yeah, but I don't think I would have been that type of idiot, or whatever. But yeah, it's just like sometimes you wrong place wrong time or right place right time, and that's always
Mm-hmm.
interesting to like reflect on with characters is like how would you have reacted in that situation, or have you been in that situation and you reacted differently. um yeah, I think that's always interesting. And like again, that's why I'm so obsessed with like Hitchcock and the things he's done is because it makes you like question your morality or question, your like how you look at the world or how you perceive things or what you're willing to admit to or not admit to or like the guilt factor of it all. And that's why like I find his work so interesting because it really makes you like step back and think, right? Like even like I think about like Rear Window, right? Like I don't know if we've talked about this. I can't remember, but his film Rear Window is so fascinating to me because like you're okay with like looking at these characters and looking at these people through Jimmy's eyes, right? Like what's his face? Jimmy Stewart.
Mhm.
But like you don't want to be a creeper, right? Or like, you know, people all the time, you know, if something's going on in their neighborhood, they want to creep out the window and look, but like, you know, there's those Instagram videos of people like fake like raking leaves on their lawn when there's like police outside, right? Because they want to see what's going on, but they want to fake it like, oh, I'm out here doing this thing, but I'm really watching because I'm nosy and I want to know what's going on. And I just feel
Mhm.
like that's all of Rear Window, right? Um now I'm just going on a tangent about Hitchcock, but no, I think you bring up an interesting question just about characters and their likability and how we relate to them
Yeah,
and
which
you know there might be a character.
makes me think of Kinds of Kindness, which I know you haven't seen, but like this is tough for me because I have to say that's probably my biggest disappointment of the year so far. Like
Yeah.
I was so excited for Kinds of Kindness. That's probably the can title even that I was like the most interested in seeing.
Mm,
And I think Yorgos Lanthimos is like a master of kind of that same thing that you're talking about, like these characters that are like morally ambiguous or like do things that you know, we would never do. But yeah, I just that movie, I don't know, and I can't, and it's so weird because it's not a movie that I would say is like bad by any means, and there's like moments of it that I enjoyed, but like as a whole, I feel like I'm glad it exists. I'm happy that I spent the money and the time to go see it, but I have
mhm,
no strong feeling about it. And like I would not say any of those, which I actually think is really interesting, like the fact that none of those characters were likable at all. But even in their like unlikability, it wasn't. I couldn't root for them. I don't know. It's a very strange experience.
I don't even know if I know what it's about. Can you give me like a brief, like I've seen
So
the trailer, but obviously like yeah, you can't really tell what's going
yeah, so
on,
there's like
which I like.
yeah, they're like it's like three different movies in one, and it's like basically like there's like different kinds of acts of kindness that are maybe not kind, but are kind of kind in their own submersive weird ways. I don't know, but yeah, and so one of them is more
Is
like
it multiple
sci-fi.
storylines?
I don't. I mean, I think that maybe I didn't get the movie as much as I thought I did, but maybe there's like a loose connective tissue, but I don't think there is a connective. I think there's like maybe one character that sort of recurs, maybe. But no, so one of them is like kind of sci-fi, and then the other one is like this Jesse Plemons and his wife comes back from this like absence at sea, but it's not really her. And then the last one is like Emma Stone and she joins this like cult, so that's like
Oh,
weird. I mean, I think you should see it, but I don't think it's the kind of thing like you would feel bad if you missed it in the theater kind of thing. But yeah, I just think Yorgos is such a fascinating filmmaker, but this is probably my
mhm.
least favorite of what he's done just because I think it doesn't pack the punch that you want it to hit, I guess.
Right, right. Yeah, I loved Poor Things and Tyler did not. So when he saw this, he was like, "Nope, I'm not." Like he's like kind of written him off, I think, and was just like, "I'm not giving it a chance." And I'm like, "Okay, whatever." So I'll watch it eventually. But have
Speaking of
not ventured
things
out to.
that I need you to do, though, Erica, I need you to read Poor
Yeah.
Things because I read Poor Things like a week
Oh,
ago, and there is a change that they made from the movie to the book to the movie that I did not realize, and it has kind of messed with
okay.
my like completely thrown me off. So I think you should. It's short. It's a
Okay.
good, really good book. But now I'm like, Yorgos, why did you do
Okay.
that? But
Oh,
no,
interesting.
yeah,
Okay. So did you like
yeah.
the book better?
Well, like I loved Poor Things. Like I loved I think that
Me
Emma
too.
Stone, she's so good. And I think like that's a
Brilliant.
perfect example of like you don't root for any of those people and they're all terrible in their own ways, but you
Right.
still there's like they just draw you in. And so I think like it elevate like those performances elevate the material so much. I just don't there's
Okay.
a change that was made that now I'm like I don't understand.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna read it. You said it's short.
It's pretty
I think
yeah.
I think I've seen the book like physically, and I was like, oh yeah, that looks like a quick, easy read.
Yeah. I've had this has probably been the best reading year of my life, but I'm only 6 months in. I've gotten to read a lot of really, really good stuff. So
Do you do like a Goodreads challenge every year?
yeah, which I always like adjust.
Are you
Yeah. Yeah.
are you
So
on Goodreads? Yeah.
yeah. Which I was telling you before we started, like I'm so old school because I'll log
Yeah.
everything that I watch like on paper, but for some reason when it comes to my books, I actually use Goodreads. But
Yeah, if we're not Goodreads friends, we need to be. This year has been like a weird year of reading for me. So I'm in like a book club with like 12 of my girlfriends, and we do a book a month. We get together, like we actually read the book, we actually talk about it. Like it's a social thing for us, but like we actually
and
do
you get
it.
together
So
in person?
yeah. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, it's really fun.
Yeah.
It's like whoever we just like go in alphabetical order of our names, and like whoever's month it is, like when it's my month to like host, I also get to pick the book. Like, and the way we usually do it is like we'll send 2 or 3 books in like the group chat that like I would be picking, like I'm the host that month, and then everyone votes on it. And it's super fun. Like I said, it's like 12 of us, and we've been doing it for like 3 years now. Like consistently. Like we do it every month. And it's great. And I love to read, and like in the summertime my reading always goes up because I love to read outside. So like I'll read at the pool or the beach or whatever. I like kind of went really ambitious this year to read 75 books, and I'm so behind. I think I've only read 25 this year. I usually do 50. But I also do audiobooks just because like sometimes you just like don't have the time, right? But I like to do audiobooks and do like memoirs or like nonfiction where like I really don't read that normally. I'll only listen to that on audiobook. So I use that as like my way of doing that genre.
Do you
But
have
what else
because
have you read this year?
my reading is very like seasonal, so I'll read like during the summer I'll read more like lighter, frothier stuff, and then in the winter like that's
Oh,
kind of
okay.
when I go for like more meatier, like heavy stuff. But it's interesting because I've tried so hard recently like with movies, like I will go in as blind as I can, like not knowing anything about which like has actually turned out really well for me because I think I judge a lot of stuff, and so now that I try not to know anything about it, I've like watched so many things that I normally wouldn't watch. But I've also tried to do that with my books, which has been a disaster because like I'll pick up a romance novel thinking like it'll be like light and frothy, and then something very triggering and horrible will happen, and I'll be like, oh
Crazy.
no.
Yeah.
But like a movie is 2 hours long, so if you have to sit with your triggers for 2 hours, you'll be okay. But if you have like 200 pages to go,
I
like,
always
oh, crap.
here's what I do when I'm picking out a book. If I'm like at the store like browsing, because I wish if I didn't have such a disaster in my room right now, I would show you my like TBR shelf. And it's like minimum 60 books that are like stacked on top of each other. That like I have been wanting to. Some books have been sitting there for years that I just like have not gotten to, but I fully bought with the intention of reading like that week. Here's what I do. I type it into Goodreads, and if it has above a 4-star, like if it's below 4 stars, like I will usually put it back because I'm like, this probably isn't worth my time if that many people rated it low enough that it's like under 4 stars. Unless it's something that I like really want to read. But I'm like my favorite genre is a thriller. Like I love a thriller. I love a mystery. I will read that year round. But I do love also like a romance, like fluffy, whatever like you said. But Yeah, I love a thriller. I do love a thriller. Because I like to read something that, like, I'm like, "Oh, I don't wanna put this down," you know? Like, I wanna see what happens. Um, but I also, like, have read, like, historical fiction. Like, there's a woman in my book club who always picks, like, a historical fiction thing, and I'm always kind of like, "Ugh," and then I read them, and I'm like, "No, these are good, like, this is good," right? Um,
Mhm.
I don't know if you've seen, because I know this has been a lot of buzz, Kristen Hanna's new book, The Women, which is
Yeah,
about
it's, like, on my wait list. I'm, like, on the wait list for it, but I'm a huge fan of Kristen. I think I've read pretty much everything she's written, and I really like her.
yeah. Yeah, I've read some of her. I haven't read all her stuff, but I've read some of it. Um, so I was thinking of maybe putting that up because I am I pick for August for our book club, so I was thinking about maybe doing that. But, like, I also love Emily Henry, and that new Emily Henry book, Funny
Yes.
Story, just came out.
It's
So,
good, it's good.
have you,
Yeah.
yeah, have you read all of her other stuff?
Mhm. Yeah. Like, once I find and I'm the same way with, like, movies, like, once I find, like, an actor, director, like, an author that I really like, I will read everything that they write. Yeah.
Same, same.
I'm a
Yeah,
completionist in that way.
same, same. So I've read all her other stuff. This is actually interesting because I know we're probably going to talk maybe this later in another episode, is like books that are becoming movies or series or TV series. And I've heard that, like, all of her books, Emily Henry's books, are getting adaptations. Have you seen this?
I think they're all in, like, various stages of development, so I'm excited
Production.
for
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
I'm so excited. Another author that I really love, I don't know if you've read any of her stuff, is Taylor Jenkins Reid.
I've read absolutely everything with her name on it. Yep. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I haven't, so that's another one, like, Seven Husbands, it's been sitting on my shelf for, like, a year now, and I want to read it, but I also, it's that thing too where, like, there's been so many times where I've almost picked it up, but I'm like, I know I am not gonna have the time that I want to dedicate to this right now, so, like, I'll delay starting it because 'cause I'm like, well, I wanna be able to, like, fully, like, have time to read this, so I think when I have, like, an upcoming beach trip, I'm gonna take it with me.
It's really good. And what I will
Yeah,
say is, like, that was one of those books that when I finished it, like, I was like, okay, it's really good, but the more that I've sat with it, I've liked it even more, which is,
yeah.
I think that in and of itself says a lot because I read a lot. I mean, like, usually I'm around 100 books, so, like, there's books that I've read that I don't remember anymore. So, like, the fact that I can tell you
Oh,
specific
yeah,
plot points from that book and it's been 5 years since I read it is
yeah,
probably the highest, like,
yeah.
recommendation value that I can give anything. So
And that's how I felt about, like, what I've read of hers, like, everything that I've read of hers, I felt that way, like, Daisy
mhm.
Jones and the Six, like, and, I can't think of the other one that I'm trying to think of right now. Was it, like, it's one of her older ones, Forever Interrupted, or,
Yeah.
what was it? The one where she's, like, kinda her husband, she thinks is dead, but he's not,
Oh,
and
they've
then he comes back.
already they was it One True
Yeah.
Love?
That was
Yeah,
a
they
One True Love, yeah. One
mhm.
True Loves or something. One
Yeah,
True
which
Loves, yeah,
they've
I
they've
loved that
made
one.
that, and did you watch the movie?
Yeah, wasn't Philippa Sue the main
Mhm.
character?
Philippa Sue. Yeah, I haven't
Yeah,
watched
I
it
did
because I'm
watch it.
like, is it as devastating as the book? Because
All
that
I
book,
can think about is the book,
Erica
so
Erica, like, that book in
I know.
particular, like, ruined my life. Like, I had to put it down for, like, a
I
prolonged
know.
period of time and then pick it up again. Like, that's
I
how bad it was. Like, I
I
just
know.
was yeah.
I know. Let me think back on I have to get back to you on the movie because now all I can think of is the book, and I just remember Philippa Sue being the main character. Yeah, no, that was one that, like, I feel like I just softly wept through while
Mhm.
reading it. But yeah, no, I love her stuff. But to talk about one that, like you said, like, triggers that, with books and film, is I am very excited for Colleen Hoover's adaptation of It Starts or It Ends with Us. um I don't know, how you. I know we kind of started to talk about this in the beginning.
I have really complicated feelings about. I mean, I have not. Okay, I should preface this by saying I've not read anything by her, but I feel like I know the plots relatively of like a lot of her famous books. But like, I mean, she writes like very toxic relationships. Does she? Would you say that that's like not a fair or unfair characterization?
I think that is fair. But wait, you haven't read It Ends With Us?
I mean, should I?
Okay, here's how I feel about Colleen Hoover. And people might hate me for this, or they might be like, oh, you know what? I think that really makes sense. I feel about Colleen Hoover books the way I feel about, or the way other people feel about Hallmark movies. That makes sense. Like, that's my comparison, is that like people watch Hallmark movies because it's kind of like an escape in a way that's like, you know what's going to happen. You kind of know the, like, it's like kind of like a safety watch, right? And when I say that with her books, it's not really that like I know what's going to happen, because there's definitely been some times in her books where I've like gasped at things, right? But in a way where like it's not like I'm not reading a book that is like I think her writing style is very easy to read and easy to blow through. Like, I'm telling you, when I started, because like I had been hearing so much about It Ends With Us, and this was like what I read this like 3 years ago or whatever, whenever it came out, and it was like everyone was talking about it. I was like, okay, I gotta see about this, right? I literally almost finished it in one sitting, and there's not many books I've done that with. I'll finish something in like 2 or 3 days, like pretty commonly. But I was like, am I like not gonna do anything other than read this book today? I remember distinctly, I was at my like community pool in my community, and I was like, I need to eat. Like, I need to leave and like go get food, but I don't want to stop reading this. Like, that's literally where I was at. Just because I feel like, and I it's gonna sound like I'm like diminishing it when I say this. Like, it's her writing isn't like this like profound writing, right? Like, it's really simple and easy. It's kind of like if you're having a conversation with your best friend, right? That kind of writing, which sometimes that's what I want to read. Like, I don't want to read something that is like profound literature. Like,
and that's the thing. Like, when I say I read a lot of romance, and I don't want to say like I'm uppity and I only read, you know, like capital L literature. Like I was telling you before we started recording, like I've been blowing through the Bridgerton books, which is like fluffy fluff McFluff, like just fluff through and through. And like that has a lot of toxic stuff. But like I don't know. I think because all of this to say that my best friend actually did text me that she was reading it too, and she blew through it similarly, like in one day. She was like, well, I guess I wasn't supposed to finish this today, but I did. And I think the trailer, I hate to say, was like very compelled by the trailer. I mean, you put a Taylor Swift song in anything and you already have my attention. Justin Baldoni is a director that I think is much better than he should be, if that makes sense. So I'm interested to see like what he does with the material. Jenny Slate pops up in anything, that probably means I'm gonna see it. So like I think so,
and I love Blake Lively. I mean, I'm a Blake Lively girly. Like, I love her.
I rewatched Age of Adeline the other day and had a blast rewatching that too. So I think all of this to say, like, it has all of the components of things that I would enjoy.
I think if you're okay, and I say this as a very privileged person, that I'm very lucky enough in my life to have grown up and lived so far in a way that like I have not had relationships that have been with toxic men that would create triggers for me. I'm very lucky, very privileged. So I think if you're someone who is worried or kind of triggered, right, by certain things, I think definitely read the trigger warnings and then decide if you want to read something. Like, even like I was just in a bookstore browsing, and I love to thrift books. I don't know if you do this, but that's like my favorite thing, is to go to Goodwill and get like a 50-cent book. but I was just in like a Books a Million store or whatever at the mall, and I always look at like their clearance table or whatever, and one of her books is on there for like $5, and I was like, okay, whatever, I'll pick it up, and it's called Too Late. And I just, again, like Colleen Hoover is one of those, like, I haven't read a ton of hers. I've read maybe a handful of her books, and I've been like, as much as I've enjoyed them, like they're, again, I don't want to say they're throwaway books. Like, I think they're good, like intriguing stories, enough so that like every one of her books that I've read, I've finished in within a week, right? Like I said, it ends with us. I finished in 2 days. But so they all haven't been like that. But it's enough that it's not like it's a crazy amount. They're all about like 300 pages or less, right? So you can get through them pretty easily. But this one, like, I haven't started reading it yet, but I opened it up, and there was like a message to the readers before the book even started, right? And it was basically saying like, this book, apparently she like started writing this book like online. It was kind of like her like writer's block book. It was like when she had writer's block with the other books that she was writing, she would go and like write to this story, right? And then it like became like, she'd post it on like her website or something, and like her fans would read it and like ask for more or like give feedback and stuff. So it kind of became this like really interesting thing. And she wrote in here, though, she's like, this is so different than any of my other books, like, and it's really dark, so like please read with caution. Like, she literally says it in there, like, this is the darkest I've ever gone. And my introduction to her was like, It Ends With Us wasn't my first book of hers. My first book of hers was Verity, because again, I'm a thriller reader, and like I'd been seeing so much about that. Highly, highly, highly recommend Verity. If you said you haven't read any of her stuff, right?
Yeah. So which one would you say I should start with?
Start with Verity.
Okay.
100%.
Because I will say, like, I feel like
should...
a lot of what because I haven't read, like, I've just seen a lot of the criticism of her books, so like I probably should actually read something so that I could come from an educated place. I'm like worried that it's gonna put this like toxic relationship on a pedestal, and I don't know.
Yeah,
because I think like as women in our 30s reading something, it's a lot different than a lot of her. Like, there's a lot of teenagers reading her work, and that makes me feel uncomfortable. So, but I will read it back.
I think I definitely read Verity. That's also I think that's becoming a mini series or something. You have to. If you do like thrillers, like,
I mean, I'll read I'm very like, I'll read anything. I don't discriminate when it comes to.
Okay.
Yeah.
100% start with Verity. 100% start with Verity. I blew through that too in like a day and a half. And then I think you should definitely read It Ends With Us before you see the movie, if you plan on seeing it. Read the trigger warnings, but I think you should read it. And those have been my two favorite of hers that I've read.
You know, it's interesting because I've said this to people, but I think basically we saw this a lot with like 50 Shades of Grey, where it basically popularized romance, and it led to like a lot of writers of color got their romance novels published, and it led to this like boom within the romance industry in particular. And there was a lot of like stories that we normally wouldn't see that were able to be published because of that book. And I think that there's something positive, like a net positive of like, yes, 50 Shades of Grey was not good writing by any stretch of the imagination. Like, you want to talk about a book that was sort of putting a very toxic relationship on a pedestal, but like there's like a net good of it got people to read, and maybe like you started reading 50 Shades of Grey, but then you made your way to like other things. And so I think that 100%. Could also be said of Colleen Hoover. Like, there's a lot of people that are reading books now because of her.
100%. And I think that's a really good point that you make, that like it also, like, I look to her to like, because like I said, every one of her books I've read so quickly, she gets me out of reading slumps, right? Just because like, I don't know, there's something about her writing where she like really draws you in to the characters and what's happening, and you just want to know what happens, right? I understand too, like, because I think this is something too that I don't know if you've heard, but I think like her son, I don't know, there was some like controversy with her son or something. I don't know. And, everyone was all up in arms about it. And I'm just like, I don't want to use this as an excuse or like to sound like I'm just like, whatever. But at some point we have to like separate the art from the person. Like, not that I want to be supportive of somebody who like I don't want to stand behind, but like, like, okay, Tom Hanks has a jackass son. Like if I like, I'm not gonna like, I still love Tom Hanks, right? Like, and
Yeah.
not to say that he's on the level, like the same level, but I just at some point I'm just like, okay, like I gotta like separate. I can't not read this woman's books that I enjoy just because
Yeah.
like, maybe her son is an idiot, like I don't even know what he did. I honestly was just like, I don't even want to look into this because like
Mm.
it's just another thing that I have to think about. Like I just don't want to think about it, right? Like he's like my Hallmark movie version of books. Like I just want to like get lost in it for a couple days and whatever,
Yeah, and I think there's a time and place, which this is the whole, I mean, we could do a whole other podcast and perhaps we should about sort of like separating the art from the artist.
Yeah.
But I watched Chinatown like literally last night, and it was like another classic. 2 or 3 years ago, my best friend gave me one of those like scratch off posters that was like the 100 essential movies. So anytime I have free time, I'm trying to make my way through the poster. So I watched Chinatown, and Jack Nicholson is horrible and disgusting, but like he is one of those actors where I can watch him do anything. Like he could just be walking down the street and I will be completely mesmerized. And I have not seen everything from Roman Polanski, but everything I have seen is like very, very good, but he is despicable and horrible. And so it's like, at what point do you, same thing with Woody Allen, like some of his movies are my absolute favorite movies. And that is like a very complicated thing that I think like I'm still very much wrestling with. And I would say it depends on kind of like a project by project basis, which sounds horrible. Like, like I think if Roman Polanski came out with a new movie tomorrow, I wouldn't watch it, but I haven't seen Rosemary's Baby, which is a Polanski film, right?
Oh. Yes.
Yeah, I haven't seen that.
See, and that's one that I'm like, oh, you gotta see that. You gotta see that, right? Like
exactly. Yeah. Really, it's really complicated and messy and hard to detangle. But I will think I'll read It Ends With Us. That's what I've come from this podcast. I'm like, Erica, I don't know. I have complicated feelings about a lot of things, but I will read Verity.
Verity?
Yeah.
Yeah, read Verity and then read It Ends With Us. Because you need to read it before you go see it if you're planning to see it, which I think
I think that's we were talking about this. There's not a lot that I'm horribly excited for, but there's a lot that I feel like I'm just gonna end up, because you were saying Baltimore is very warm, so you found yourself going to the theater a lot. My Texan self that is very used to heat is dying, so I too have found myself going to the movie theater a lot, and will likely find myself going to the movie theater a lot this summer. So like Deadpool and Wolverine, am I excited? No. Am I gonna go see it? Probably, yeah.
Right. Because why not on like a, or like you said, like I know you always talk about like you like to go on Tuesday discount night. Like why not? Like what else are you doing on like a summer Tuesday night? We've gotten off the rails, which is good. It's always fun. But I did want to mention the other things I've seen, because we were just talking about I've been going to the movies a lot. I know you haven't seen this, but I saw The Bike Riders. I loved it. This was one that like I was like, looking forward to, like, okay, like I like Austin Butler and I think it's going to be good. And then it was one that I like when I saw it, I was like, wait, I loved this. Like it was so good. It's like we left and Tyler said, that was Goodfellas but on motorcycles. And like Goodfellas is like one of his like favorite all time, so yeah, that's like a loose comparison, but I think you'll get it when you see it. Why he
would
made that
you say
comparison.
it's like
I loved
need
it.
to see it before it leaves the movie theater, or I can see it like when it's on my TV, or should I see it like now?
In the sense of like visually, do you have to see it in the theater?
I mean, just how like pressing of like a see it right away.
I think while there's not much out right now,
Mm.
if you can see it in the theater, I think you should. I loved it. I thought Jodie Comer was incredible. Like, she carried the whole film, literally. You'll see what I mean when you eventually see it. I thought she was fantastic. I thought, and overall, like, it's one of those that it's just like for me, it was like a pleasant surprise. Like, I didn't have really high expectations going into it, and I left being like, oh, I actually really like that surprised me. Where, like, for example, I had pretty high expectations going into A Quiet Place day one, and I was totally let down. Like,
Oh
you didn't,
no.
you liked it?
Oh, I had zero expectations for this movie. And not to plug my own stuff, I did get to go on the main pod, and Brendan and I did an episode about it. So if you haven't listened to the review, you should do that.
I
But
haven't yet, but I definitely will listen to it.
yeah,
I was
and
disappointed.
it's one of my favorite movies of the year. Like, I loved it.
Really?
Yeah. Like, it totally
Okay,
appealed to my I was so emotionally moved by it. Like, I was not expecting to
yeah.
care about the characters as much as I did, and I thought, like, there were so many
Okay.
beautiful moments just about, like, appreciating, like, the little things. And, like, as a monster thriller, did it deliver? Maybe not, but I just thought, like, the relationship between the Lupita and Joseph Quinn character was really good. Her performance was extraordinary, and I think she communicates
He was
so much.
incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's even, speaking of, like, book lover, like, the moment where she, like, goes and like just smelling the old books just to have, like, a moment of joy, like, and there's, like, the scene in the thunder between the two of them. Like, I was bawling. Speaking of, like, going to the movie theater, I was thinking about this because, and I love going to the movie theater by myself. There's, like, a tweet of, like, why would you ever go to the movies? Like, going to the movies by yourself is, in my opinion, one of, like, the great joys of adulthood. I love it so much,
100%.
except for
Yeah.
when you go see a movie that has left you emotionally. So I was, like, crying, and then I was, like, sitting there being like, now I have to pick myself up and take myself home. But yeah, I really liked it.
That's when you, like, duck into the bathroom before you leave and, like,
yeah.
have a moment in the bathroom, pull
Yeah.
yourself together. Here's the thing.
Yeah.
Yes, Lupita, like, she's incredible. Like, I'm not taking anything away from her performance. I thought she's wonderful. I think she's always wonderful. I think because I should not have had high expectations. And when it wasn't that, I think that's what left me disappointed. I think I thought it was going to unveil more about that universe, I think, like, that we were now in. And I understand, like, it was day one, but I thought we were just going to learn more about, like, what was happening. Like, it was going to unveil something. I don't know. Like, I don't know. I felt like if it was a standalone movie, and not, I think I'm also judging it as a trilogy, right? Like, as this bigger thing, and I just don't think it fits in with the other two films. If that makes sense. I don't know.
I think that's fair. Although, like, I think that's what I liked about it. I liked that it was like, let's take the end of the world genre and just do something else with it. I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah. I okay, I shouldn't have said I did it. It disappointed me. It wasn't that I didn't like it. Again, I think if it was a standalone film, I would have been blown away.
Mm-hmm.
I just think it was, like, kind of shoved into this Quiet Place universe, and it didn't need to be there. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I think that's entirely fair. And it's funny you mentioned, like, the learning more about the origins, because when I told my brother something like, oh, I went to see A Quiet Place day one, and he was like, did you figure out why the aliens came to Earth? And I was like, no, like, that wasn't really what the movie was about at all. Yeah,
that wasn't it at all. And you know what, honestly, like, on day one, you wouldn't know, right? Because, like, they didn't know what was happening, right? And I just think I should have gone in with no expectations of what I thought I was gonna see or learn, or, whatever. you know, and that, oh my God, you know, like that cat stressed me out. And as a cat owner, it was just like, I mean, I mean, who knows where he's at? He's usually right near me when I'm recording, but I mean, he would have ran away that first time and I'd never seen him again because he'd have been so spooked. He would have never found his way back. So that cat, I mean, that cat performance of the year, honestly. Yeah, I don't know. I think I just had I don't want to say I had too high of expectations. I just had different expectations than what I actually was given. So then I feel disappointed, if that makes sense.
I think that is entirely fair. It just, for some reason, it was like one of those movies where I was like, okay, I'm on board with this and I'm gonna go wherever it wants to take me, and I had a good time. Yeah. But
No, it was. I mean, yeah, not to.
Speaking of another mutual film, how did you feel about Inside Out 2?
I loved it. I'll tell you this. Inside Out, the first one, is my all-time favorite Pixar film.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yep. Yep. I was a Toy Story girly for a long time, and then Inside Out came into my life and favorite Pixar. I just thought I was so moved by that movie, the first one, that like I just felt like, oh my gosh, like a true visualization of feelings on screen was like, this is genius, first of all, right? Genius storytelling. But I just felt so like, as an adult watching it, felt so moved by the characters. And then the first one is still my favorite, but I loved this one. I thought it did, again, such a good job of just like visualizing, like, I can't let anxiety take over my life. You know, because I think a lot of us, especially you, like you said, our us 30 somethings can relate to this, even though it's like a teenager, right? Like, we're seeing a teenager story. I think we can still relate to it in the feelings and emotions that she's experiencing. And again, I just think it's so clever the way it's done. The characters are so funny. The writing's so funny. I loved it. I loved it.
You went to see it with like your niece and nephew, right? So how
Yeah,
did
and
they?
my mom, yeah.
Yeah, were they able to? Because I'm always curious about that with like Pixar. Because even with my little cousin, like I'll notice some of the Pixar movies that I really love, she doesn't connect to because, you know, sometimes they can be a little bit like too much into like catering to adults.
Yeah, no, totally. And it was funny, actually. I was just talking with Tyler's mom, and Tyler has a bunch of nieces and nephews, right? And she said that she took one of, you know, her grandchildren to see it, and she asked them, like, well, what did you learn? You know, and one of them said, well, I can't let anxiety control my life, you know. So I think, like, you know, again, that visualization of emotions and actually being able to see it really, you know, and like, I remember my nephew, like, after the movie telling me, he's like, I really liked embarrassment. And, you know, like, and embarrassment was like really cute when his little butt crack was sticking out, like stuff like that, right? So yeah, I think, you know, and my niece, who is 5, I don't think it really stuck with her, you know, in that way. But I think just that, even that 2-year difference, being a little bit older, I think makes a difference. And I think, again, I think just like talking about emotions and things that like maybe weren't the same when we were younger, like this generation, I think is just growing up different overall, right?
Yeah, and I think growing up with these movies is probably such a gift, like,
yes,
to be able to have that to like show your kids as they're processing.
100%.
Yeah, I will say, so I love Inside Out, not to the level that you do, but I genuinely, and I rewatched it recently, and I do really like it. I think the sequel has the same issue as the original for me, which is that when they leave the mind and they're sort of wandering through the recesses, like, I think it kind of slows down a little bit, and I lose interest. And I think the sequel was the same, kind of like when they're kind of, when they leave the main console and they're going through, like, there was times where I was like, oh, I want them to go back, because I just love the interactions with all the, like, the part when they're like controlling. I find that so interesting. So when they're not doing that,
100%.
I find but there's like, I mean, you mentioned like the creativity. I think that I left feeling so inspired because I just think they're able to do such interesting things, like where they have like the brainstorm and it's a literal storm, or they have like the or like the sarcasm and it's like a literal chasm. Like I was just like, who comes up with like it's just crazy to me.
No, 100%. 100% so creative. There's actually a book I'm gonna recommend to you that's about like Pixar and how they write their stories. It's super tiny little book. I actually got it when I was taking like a script writing film like class. I'm gonna recommend it to you so you can read it because it's just, I think you'll love it, and like I said, it's such a short read. But yes, I agree with you. I am always also finding myself like get back to the console because, like you said, I think that's just like when it's best, right? I also love when it cuts to the mom and dad like inside there. Like I just and like it's so funny because, like I said, like my mom came with me and I could just hear my mom like cracking up in those moments,
Yeah, I wish we would have
like,
gotten a little bit more.
Yeah, 100%. And those are the moments for the adults, right? Like Pixar's very aware that like the adults are in the room for these movies, right? And I love that they play to that. Because that was some of the funniest stuff in the first one too, right? And it was such a short time, but I think when they do it, it's exactly when it should be, and I think it just works. I think it's hilarious. So yeah, I love I love those moments. Yeah, I think it's great. It's my favorite. I'm not even gonna lie. It's my favorite Pixar.
All right. I will.
So.
All right. That's another episode we need to do at some point, is ranking Pixar, but it's not a bad choice.
That would be so fun.
Not a bad choice for your favorite at all. Speaking of another kid, so you saw the new Despicable Me. How was that, and how did that play to your audience?
Oh, they loved it. Confession, this is the only Despicable Me movie I've ever seen. So seeing the fourth one, like, like I never saw the other ones. But no, my niece and nephew loved it. I found it to be very silly, which obviously, like, I know that going into it. I kind of like, there's some times where I just kind of felt like it's disjointed. Again, I didn't have really, high expectations going in. It was silly. It was cute. I mean, yeah, but I don't really know what to base it off of because I've never seen the other ones. So
yeah, I think with Pixar, you kind of expect like intelligence, and no offense to the people at Illumination, but like whenever I see an Illumination film, I'm like, okay, this is just like fluff and like cuteness for kids, which is fine.
Silly fun. Yeah. Silly fun kids story. Yeah. Yeah, and then okay, total flip of the cards here. The other one that I wanted to mention that I saw in theaters that kind of pleasantly surprised me, I'll say, is the Horizon movie. I'm not a Western girly. I know you're not.
I'm not. Yeah.
It was one of the, like, Tyler had really wanted to see it. Had been looking forward to it, and it was one that I just kind of felt like fine, like whatever about. Again, me, like you and I are the kind of people like I'll kind of see anything, right? So like he had said to me like, "Do you want to see this?" And I'm like, I mean, yes, I'll go to see it, right? Like, although it's 3 hours long, like we need to be strategic about this, but it was okay. I also gauge 3-hour movies on like, did I again, we've talked about this, like, did I need to get up and go to the bathroom? Did I, those, I didn't, right? I didn't. And I had a whole large like Coke Zero when we got there, right? Like with Coke Zero and my popcorn. And like, I always think too, like, okay, 3 hours of Titanic, give me that any day of the week. Like this, did I want to watch it again? Like I kind of gauge it like that too. Definitely not on the level of Titanic, obviously, but did I enjoy it? Yes. Like, did I find the story interesting? Yes. Like, there's a few different storylines, and it does kind of jump around. There was only like one moment where we kind of like were like, what does this fit in? Like, how does this fit in? And then I had been seeing some chatter like about people saying they kind of were frustrated with the ending because the ending kind of is just like a montage, almost trailer for the next film, which, okay, like, it could have ended differently. I don't think that was the best way to end it, but okay, like, that's fine. But I did think it was more interesting, and like it held my attention definitely more than I thought it was going to. I'm not gonna lie.
I mean, I
So
really, because that's a huge like passion project for Kevin Costner. I think he like put all of his own money into it, has been working on it for years. So I feel like from that perspective, I'm interested in seeing what it is, and I appreciate it. I'm
yeah.
wondering now that you said that, like, should I wait until, because it's are there going to be 2 or 3?
So here's what Tyler told me after we left. He said the second one's already done. So like the second one, like I think they filmed them at the same time, right? And that's gonna come out, I guess, next year. He's still trying to get funding for the third and fourth. I think there's supposed to be 4. So
Ooh,
yeah, and he's trying to like find the funding for it or something. So they
interesting.
haven't really started. Yeah. Yeah. So
I wonder if
all
I'll
that
wait
being
for the second one to come out and see them together or not. To be continued.
yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where like I don't really know what to tell you because like obviously like I haven't seen the second one yet. So if it's like I'd seen both, I would tell you like, oh yeah, like you should wait and watch them together. It's hard because it's like, did I leave feeling like, oh yeah, that was good. Like, yeah, of course. Like I left and I was like, oh yeah, that was entertaining for, even though it was 3, like it didn't, I will say this, like I don't really think it felt 3 hours long. I'll tell you the first like 45, 50 minutes is wild. And I think that's also what kind of like kicking it off in the way it kicks off, like it is just kind of like like chaos for like a good 45 minutes to 45 50 minutes. And I heard some people complaining about that too, like spoiler alert, Kevin Costner doesn't come in until like the 1 hour mark, but I'm fine
Oh.
with that, right? Like yeah, I mean, but again, it's a 3-hour movie. Like if you introduce him in the first 5 minutes, like what, like I'm fine with that approach. Because there's got to, there's always got to be those 1 hour pivots. Like, and I think they did a really good job with this, of those hitting those marks of, okay, 1 hour pivot, this happens. 2 hour pivot, another thing happens, and I that's something I take into consideration every movie I watch. Like I literally look at my clock, look at my watch for that 1 hour mark, like what's happening. Because I think that's important in storytelling. I think every movie, whether it's 90 minutes or 3 hours, those 1 hour pivots, you got to have something that turns again, like a pivot, like that. What's the turning point of the story, right? So I think I'm fine with him not coming in until that point. Honestly, like I didn't expect it. Like I wasn't missing him on screen because I knew we were leading up to something, right? So I guess I should. Yeah, I think you should go see it. I think you should go see it. But I know you're not a Western girl. I'm not either.
But I
Like
think
I'm like
you, yeah,
Brokeback Mountain.
yeah. I think you liking it as much as you did not being into Westerns is like enough of a selling point for me to go see. You know what I mean? Because that was one of those things where I was like, okay, it's not for me. But if you liked it that much,
don't let. I think in this case, don't let the Western genre deter you from it. Because I was expecting, and like I had heard people saying like they thought it was slow. I didn't think it was slow, honestly, and I would tell you if I did. Like I said, it held my attention for the whole 3 hours.
So speaking of
Is
things,
it like the best thing ever?
Yeah. No, I was gonna say, speaking of things that I did not think were for me, so I put off watching it. The single greatest summer experience that I've had at the movies thus far is going to see the Lord of the Rings trilogy. I had never seen them before because I was like, this is a boy thing, it's a fantasy thing. I'm a girly girl, I always have been. I was like, I'm not gonna like this, I don't care. Finally went to see them. I had a blast. I went by myself. I ordered whatever concession. Like, this is terrible, but there's like certain times where you're like embarrassed to have your friends see you just like gorge on but I was like, I'm by myself. I can eat whatever I want.
Yes.
I just had so much fun like in this world. It was like way funnier than I thought it was going to be. I did not realize that young Viggo Mortensen was as attractive as he was. I thoroughly enjoyed the eye candy aspects of things. I was super invested in the characters. Did not think that I would. I just didn't think I would care, to be honest with you, and I really did. And like, so I guess they were shot on film and have been digitized, I think. And so people were online, they were like, well, this isn't how Peter Jackson like wanted the films to be seen. But I don't have anything to compare. I mean, I thought they looked great. I thought a lot of the CGI held up really, really well. And they were the extended edition. So I felt like the parts that probably felt a little long were the parts that maybe weren't in the original. But I just, I had so much fun. And now I've made it kind of a mission for like all of the, to see all of the classics, like when they become re-released. I really enjoy it. And it was so fun because one of my favorite things in general is to people watch. And it was really fun to see like the nerdy, like older men that had come to see the movie and they were so excited. So yeah, I loved everything about it. And if you have, I think they're done with this re-release, but if they do it again, I would highly recommend anyone go or just see something that you may not have thought would be for you could end up being for you. It was a really valuable lesson for me, actually, that I shouldn't be as judgmental as I have been in the past, I guess.
I love that. I also put that off for a really long time too, for the same reason you did. I was like, I'm not really a fantasy girly either. Like, yes, I've seen Dune, but otherwise, like, I still have never seen any Star Wars film. Like, still to this day, have never seen any Star Wars film. People are probably turning this off at this point, but no shame. I have no shame admitting that. It just was never my thing, and like it kind of became like this, like almost like conversation starter, like in the film world, especially. Will I eventually watch them one day? Probably. I just have not gotten around to it. And, it's like, it's a lot now, right? There's a lot of Star Wars content out there, but same thing for me. I don't think, when did I watch Lord of the Rings? I'm trying to think, like, we usually every year for New Year's do like a binge watch of something. And I'm trying to think, did we do a binge watch of Lord of the Rings? I don't know. I know I've watched them, but now I can't remember when or why. And you know what? Honestly, I wish I would have seen them in a theater because I feel like they're long, right? Like you said, and like seeing them at home, I think just allows for distraction naturally.
Yeah.
So I think I would have loved to see them in a theater. And you know what? Honestly, I don't know if they did the re-release around here because I feel like that's something that Tyler definitely would not have missed because he loves those movies.
I think you were literally in London when it was happening.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay, that makes sense totally.
But no, and I felt the same way. I felt like if I was watching them at home, there would be points where I was like tempted to look at my phone. So I was really happy that was eliminated. Although, can I just tell you quickly that there was, for the third one, a family that decided it was a good idea to bring like their very young child, and that kid was not okay through multiple points in the film, which did dampen my experience. And I understand, I'm not trying to, like, I don't have kids and I'm not trying to be like, I understand childcare is expensive, but like, why that poor kid probably had nights and nights of nightmares of like ghost armies, and like, why would you subject that child to that experience? So
like, how old do you think this child was?
I mean, they had to have been like 3. Yeah, because they would like run in and out, and then I don't know, maybe I looked like their mom or something. They would like stop in front of my chair, like trying to find their mom again. It was wild, but I was like, why would you do that? Like, I don't understand.
I'm surprised people weren't did people complain?
I mean, yeah, but like, people listen, say whatever you want about the suburbs, but I feel like people in the suburbs were very nice. Like, people are nice and like they're not gonna make a scene, like there was like grumble, but people were just watching the movie. Yeah.
I think I'd have been like, I'm sorry, y'all got to get this child out of here.
No, yeah, no, it was just, I was like, why would you? Why?
Yeah, no, that seems bizarre to me. But again, also don't have children. Love being an aunt, but I don't think I would take. I mean, I guess if you really want to go and you have no other choice, I don't know. That seems wild to me.
Yeah.
That seems wild.
Last movie
Yeah.
that I would just want to plug real quick because
Yeah.
I'm so glad that this movie exists. I'm glad that it got a theatrical release, and if it's playing
Mhm.
near you, you should go see it because we should support smaller movies, which is Thelma. It is delightful. June Squibb, finally at the age of 9? I think she's in her 98, late 80s,
Is
early.
she?
Yeah. Is having a movie star moment. She is wonderful. It was just so sweet. It made me smile so big. And yeah, if you just want, I mean, just see it in a theater, see it with a crowd, see it in general. But yeah, it's really good, sweet movie. First time filmmaker inspired by his relationship with his own grandma, which is really sweet.
Aw.
And I think, I don't know if you would agree, I think a lot of times movies that are made for like, or have older characters will sometimes like dumb them down too much, or I don't know, just have it in a way that feels like a little bit disrespectful, or like treating them like children, and they're not. And I think that that's what this movie does really well, is it kind of has like compassion and humanity for all of their characters regardless of how old they are. So like a really, really solid film, and I'm excited to see what this director does next. So yeah, I really, really, really enjoyed Thelma.
Yeah, and like I said, I had stumbled upon it because I was just like looking at what was playing at like the little indie theater in Baltimore, and I had never heard of it. So I like watched and like the trailer I saw was like maybe 30 seconds. And I so much so that I didn't even get from the trailer what the film was about. So I like just looked it up on IMDb really quick just to get like the 1 to 2 sentence like this is what this is about. And I thought the premise was really interesting too, because I feel like it's very timely, right? Where, and hopefully I'm not giving anything away by this because I haven't seen it, but what it says is that she is, I guess, seeking revenge against like a scam. Like she was scammed out of money, which has been happening. Like I'm sure every one of us has seen it in the news where like these like you said, grandparents are getting scammed for money. Um, you know, over the phone, online, whatever. And I just love the premise of it because I'm like, oh, this is like timely, right? Like this is happening.
And yeah, I mean, I love movies. I mean, I obviously love all movies, but like sometimes a movie is not designed to like change your life. It's just entertaining and it's gonna make you smile. And I feel like that was this for me, where I was like literally grinning like an idiot the whole way through the film.
I love that. So is it a
Yeah.
comedy? Is it funny?
Yeah, I mean, and it's definitely like heartwarming. I mean, it's gonna remind like everyone of their grandma, but I was definitely laughing a lot, and I just thought it was really sweet and well done.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Well, gosh, oh my gosh, I feel like we've scratched the surface and we've been here for almost 90 minutes.
And listen, if you thank you for letting. I always say, and this is cheesy, but that is my brand. Like I love movies, but books are the one true love of my life. So I'm glad that I got to geek out about some books with you.
I know, and I think more book talk later. I think we should.
We should. And I know you and I have talked about this in the past, but I really want to do like a Chasing the Gold book club. So if anyone out there is listening, if there's a book that you think we should talk about that you guys want us, or, we could all buddy read it together as an audience and talk about it, I think that would be really fun. So I'm always asking for suggestions. So send us suggestions. It could be something that's going to be adapted or something not that would appeal to movie lovers. But I would love to do that at some point.
I mean, the first two on your list are Verity and It Ends With Us.
Yes,
so once you get and you know what? I heard Verity is going to be a miniseries. Did I say that earlier? I can't remember if I did or not, but it's supposed to be, I think, a miniseries. So yes, we should do a little mini book club. I would love that. Yes. Yeah. That would be super fun. Okay, so we'll wrap this up because again, I was like, do we think we can talk for 45 minutes? And here we are, double that time. I'm glad we got to catch up. I'm glad we got to talk about my trip. Thank you for letting me geek out on my trip because that was so fun. And I'm glad we got to talk about like the little bit of things that we've seen lately and a little bit about what's coming up. So more to come from us at Chasing the Gold. Anything else you want to say or plug or?
Well, and I do want to plug. We talked about bike riders. Did you get to see that JD interviewed Jeff Nichols, the director?
I did, but I haven't listened to it yet.
I haven't gotten a chance to watch/listen to it just because I don't know. I'm very weird, but sometimes I like to save things that I look forward to.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but I know that was something that he has been wanting to do for a really long time. So I'm glad that came to fruition for him. So if you have seen the movie, I know it would mean a lot to JD and everyone at In Session if you check that out. And Chasing the Gold, we have articles that are multiple articles a week that come out kind of tracking the race. And I know we're in the early stages of the race, but I think that's actually led to some really interesting stuff. Jalen just wrote an article about Mean Girls and contemporary makeup and why it's
fun.
Yeah, it's a really, really interesting piece. And so yeah, I think it's our writers have been very creative thus far with how to spin the early stages of the race into content. So check that out. That is my plug for today.
I love that. No, all good stuff. Yeah, I have a lot to catch up on. It's funny. It's like you think when you travel, you're gonna like, oh, I'm gonna read so much and I'm gonna listen to so much stuff, and then you just like don't have the time. So like, also my listening, I've been like trying to catch up on all of the podcasts I listen to. So I'm still in catch up mode for sure. So okay, and then where can we follow you, Shadan?
I am at Shadan Larkey, and so this is July 7th. I should say there's a Hurricane Barrel. So follow me for hurricane survival content. I love hurricane Twitter, is always a lot of fun. But yeah, that is what I'm gonna be. I'm gonna be reading my Bridgerton fluff, reading Colleen Hoover, and that's gonna be my hurricane activities.
I love it. I love it. Well, stay safe.
I'm at Shadan.
Good. And of course, follow at In Session Film, and you can find me on at eRock Reviews. Again, thanks for listening. You've been with us for a while now, so if you've made it to the end, we love you and we appreciate you. And we can't wait for more to come. So thanks, and we'll see you soon.
Yeah, we'll catch you on the next one.